Oh Seven Citizens, Black here from Castle Black Gaming, and today we have quite a few things to go over with the second roadmap update of 2023 and second one this month. This roadmap update finally added the pushback Q3 schedule for the upstream teams, and so much has changed from even just 2 weeks ago. And so this video will be going over all those changes I've found that were not mentioned in the official update yesterday, and believe me, there were quite a few, and even some that looked to be completed in November and December that were added back to the schedule for more work, which is how things go in the development of Star Citizen. There was one huge surprise which I will touch on in the video as well. Now this is not just me reading over change, but more of an analysis on the changes that will be briefly summed up. I have been tracking any changes that have happened over the last few months so I can give you more insight on what is going on with your anticipated features. Alright, so now let's skip the normal channel promoting and get right off to the roadmap. Alright, so before we begin, I must first point out that the nature of the monthly report is that it is constantly updated and changed, sometimes week to week. Just because we might not hear about a change happening when they do their every other Wednesday update does not mean that things do not get adjusted or changed before or after. Another thing is that my report is just telling you when something shows its work being worked on or completed on the roadmap. Sometimes there could be more teams that need to pick up these items and their work might not be added to the roadmap until a later time, which you will see in this video specifically with several features. Now sometimes teams work on things and their work is not noticed, so again, things are not always quite what they seem. Any guesses I make here are my own and I'm sometimes wrong, but I like the discussions we have about the various items and welcome those of you who think I'm wrong to say so. So now let's get to the roadmap. Alright, so the brand new deliverables that were added to the roadmap this week were new missions, salvage contracts. Now this has already been discussed in a recent Star Citizen Live with the missions features team. I advise you to go watch, if only for the salty mic love that was passed around. The next item to be added to the roadmap are the Duster faction outfits. So far they have shown up in a few missions, such as one from Rudo where he says he has been contracted by the Dusters, but with outfits coming, I think we can expect them to be woven into more storylines and missions very soon. Master modes, which is something we were informed about at the 2952 CitizenCon, is something also added now to the roadmap, although there is no work currently scheduled for 2023. Now if you follow along with the dev chat from Yogi Klatt, who was on the ship team, you will know that it has been heavily tested within the team itself, so far only for Squadron 42. Many in the PU would like to get their hands on it, so maybe this is a move to see it finally on its way into the verse, but I do know they have said that they have a lot of work to do to add it to the remaining ships that are in the verse versus those that are in Squadron 42. The last item, which is not brand new but newly added back to the tracker, are persistent halves, which are a separate and different thing than the persistent hangars. Now with a recent Inside Star Citizen going over building interiors, halves were mentioned. Now with the work on this deliverable going on until the end of June, and considering we were only shown concept art for the buildings, I would say that this deliverable will be updated and continued for at least another year or more, so this should not be something we see anytime soon. This is the equivalent of player housing if you've played MMOs that have such a thing. Now with many MMOs, player housing is often monetized more times than not, and I can easily see CIG monetizing this in some form, whether that be after we are able to receive some sort of freebie apartment in a less stellar part of town, or if we want additional housing or more convenient or nicer housing we would have to pay real money for. Housing items and decor are also a huge monetizing thing in MMOs, which I am personally not a fan of, versus being able to find or earn those same items in game. I prefer a path for either or, but not one that's exclusive to a paywall. I'm even okay with making blueprints rare and tradable in game, giving players something to work toward or specialize in or make money from. But anyway, we're putting the cart before the horse here. With no details, this is all just speculation, but housing could very well be the next huge monetization thing that CIG goes with, which would easily rival their ship sales. Alright, there was just a single release view change to this roadmap, and that was the previously announced new variant of the RSI Scorpius, the Scorpius Antares. This variant will support an EMP device and quantum jammer, which looks to be controlled by the Copilot. There have been mixed feelings on this, and even though I am not interested in owning this one, we'll see how things shake out with it, and there should be an FAQ for it soon. It releases with 3.18, so it has been added to that release view. So with this roadmap update, if you were to just go by what was in the actual post, you would think that was all that really happened or was changed on the roadmap. While yes, the upstream team's dates were pushed out, which saw many of the long-term items pushed out from June to September, that was to be expected. I track all things roadmap, and there were quite a few unexpected items that were not mentioned in the official update. So let's go over those now. The Argo SRV was pushed out a week, extending its finish timeline a little. Nothing major here, but still a change. The AR map rework, which showed its team's work completed back in December and which showed not worked on for January or February, was added back to this week's roadmap, with its work now expected to be completed the second week of March. This is not abnormal, just reporting here, and you will see quite a few items just like this that did the same thing on this report. The ATC service feature, which had not shown in work done for a few months, was added back to the roadmap, with work set to complete the second week of August. This controls the landing logic and needs to be changed for server meshing to be its own service for each dedicated game server. So this work is imperative for server meshing, hence it was added back to the deliverables. The Entity Properties plugin is another feature that showed completed in mid-December and had no work done on it in January and February, but popped its head back up on this week's report with a new end date at the end of March. This is an internal tool that will help reduce the time it takes developers to handle entities within the game. FPS Devices Tier 1 has been missing for many months from the roadmap, but work was added back on this roadmap, with it looking to end the first week of March. This will allow for more character-held devices or weapons and tools to be used by players and stored on their bodies, with very little in the way of specifics, so it looks like something that needed to be worked on in anticipation for something we will no doubt hear about soon. There are a few new weapon types on the roadmap, so perhaps this deals with one or more of those. Frontier Clothing showed its work completed back in December and has also reappeared, needing more time, and looks to be completed the third week of March. Hacking Tier 0 was another, with its work showing completed in November of 2022. It has now also returned with work lasting until the end of March. I had hoped to see this in 3.19, but we can definitely rule that out, and with another of the associated features being pushed off until later in the year, which we'll get to in a moment, you can see that this feature might not make it in until well after 3.20, but I'll cling on to some hope that we get it in some form or another soon. The Hex tool, which is another developer tool that does something I'm not quite sure of but showed completed back in December, has come back and shows work until the end of March now. Life Support Tier 0 was pushed back from June until the end of September as part of the upstream teams being pushed out as announced. Many of these big items were not expected to be completed in June, so this was not a surprise. Now, one thing we can sort of guess at is that since it has been in the works since 2021 with 128 weeks of work needed, we might see it sometime this year, especially since it's tied in with resource management tools, which we got glimpses of and to which are also still on the roadmap, so maybe we'll get some exciting news during CitizenCon this year for all of these. Lockable containers are another feature associated with hacking, which we just went over a couple back. This feature was pushed back from March all the way to the end of September, so this was one of the larger pushbacks on the map, and considering it started back in November 2021 with a projected time of 99 weeks, that puts it at around the new time and has been moved out to be completed, so maybe it will arrive with 4.0. Hacking containers will be a very nice feature for missions to add another element to those, and this is also on Squadron 42 as well. The map and radar system, which is something I myself have been really anticipating, was shown as completed back in December and was not on the roadmap with any work being done on it, but it is back again with more work projected to be done by the end of March. The new map and quantum travel updates are really needed, and although I do not expect to see them in 3.19 anymore, there's hope for a summer release, but we'll see if it gets pushed back further, and hopefully the March report we'll get the first week in April might shed some light on its current state. The Miss Cull Seas date was pushed back a couple of weeks to the second week of March. Now, I do not think this will interfere with it being available for 3.19, but there might be something else that prevents it from coming out, and that is a recent admission from the devs about too much cargo causing server performance issues. We'll see if this is something that needs additional time to work through or not, but if anything causes the Hull C to be delayed, it would be that. NPC Schedule Service is a system that controls the spawning in and out of NPCs given their need and number in an area and more. No work on it has been done in months, but it's back and showing work being done now until the third week of August. This might be another system that is needed for server meshing, so with it being dialed back in, it will be interesting to see if this is the case. Regardless, it's nice to see back-end work being done in support of server meshing. Speaking of server meshing was pushed back from June until mid-September. Now with the most recent Inside Star Citizen, we got a sneak peek at how the devs are working to plan things out, and it looks like they are focusing on just making it work for adding Pyro as a first iteration, which will be a stepping stone to creating the more dynamic servers than just the static servers we have now. Pyro will no doubt still have static servers, but the transferring of data from one server to the other is the very basics we need, and even though it might not be the server meshing we all hoped it would be, it will get us in the right direction, that being Pyro, of course. My old favorite, physics rope simulation, which showed its work completed on the roadmap back in December, is back to climb its way into our hearts, or at least just be an annoyance, popping back up with work to now be completed the second week of March. These physics are supposed to be for pulleys within the game, so not sure how they will affect us unless it's something for moving cargo, which could make sense for freight elevators, maybe, I don't know, but maybe not. It might just be some mission mechanics, so we'll see. Tony Z's quantum simulation was pushed back until the third week of September. I do miss hearing from Tony, and I'm worried now that we might not hear from him until CitizenCon. I also miss hearing about the features that were being tested with some of the events, which they seem to have gone radio silent on. Here's hoping we learn something new, because there's a whole bunch of new players who have joined the verse who have no idea who Tony Z is and have yet to have their minds blown by him. The quantum travel experience was slated to be completed early February, but that has now been pushed off slightly to mid-March. I will be surprised if we see this before the star map changes, but maybe it's not relying on that feature, so who knows. Resource management was pushed back from June to the end of September, which, as discussed earlier, is no real surprise. The RSI links was pushed back a couple of weeks as well. It was originally supposed to be completed the end of March, but now it will be the second week of April. This could still put it in time for 3.19, so I will hold on to that hope. If not then though, Invictus Week, I'm pretty sure it'll happen by then. The RSI Polaris was pushed back from the end of March until mid-September. Now this was not a surprise, but I'm glad it's being actively worked on, and this would be really cool to see in time for CitizenCon, and maybe this ship is being worked on by the new ship team in Montreal, which many of us have speculated that the new team there will focus on the backlog of ships, which if they do, will be super great news. Now, if I had more time, I would have had a trumpets animation made, because this was the single best piece of news I think we had from this roadmap, and that is Salvage Vehicle Munching's date was actually reduced from ending in June 2023 down to the end of March. It's not on the release view for 3.19, and that is a long shot I think, but it might make its way into testers' hands soon after that, which I think puts its odds of a summer 3.20 release possible. Hull scraping is cool and all, but the munching feature promises to be a lot more lucrative, so here's hoping we get it this summer. Security Network version 1 was moved from the end of June until the third week of September. Now this tracks, and I would honestly expect it to be pushed back until the end of December after this, due to how long its planned time is versus when it started. It needed a little over 2.5 years, and so December I think gives it some breathing room. This feature will add more diversity to various elements of security in the verse, which will probably affect missions most of all, and where you can and cannot enter, such as specific access to rooms or parts of certain stations, etc. Star Words is a toolset that the devs use for handling language localization. This tool originally showed its work completed in December, but it has also risen from the roadmap dead completed status to have work done ending in March. Test Runner Improvements is another tool which helps the teams analyze tester data. All tools are good tools, and this is one which has not been on the roadmap for a few months, and it's back and showing work ending at the tail end of March. Now, last on our list is Virtual AI Service. This showed completed in November, but it's back and showing a lot of work needed to complete, with its new completion date being the third week of August. This is another feature that controls AI and allows it to communicate between subsumption tasks and quanta, so yet another part of Tony Z's baby that will be needed before that system can go online. Alright, and that concludes this monthly roadmap deep dive. I was happy to see the upstream team's dates pushed back, which gives us a clear idea of what to expect for the 320 update. Now, I know we haven't even got the 318 update out yet, much less 319, but it's not too early to be looking ahead to try and see what those big ticket items might be for late summer. Now, if you like this content, then please like, subscribe, and definitely join in the conversation below by commenting. Even when I'm wrong, I still enjoy hearing from you and discussing what we're looking forward to and our guesses on when things might come out. Now remember to be kind to your fellow gamer, make sure you're prepared for the next wipe, and stay positive citizens.